I really thought that Soto would respond and show up in a big way and finally put to bed any of the thoughts that he's uncomfortable here with the Mets and get the Yankee stuff behind him and move forward and thrive in that environment. And Carlos Mendoza said something after the game last night that to me registered. He said, well, nothing changed with Juan Soto, meaning like he wasn't affected by the 50,000 booing him. And that to me is a problem. Something needed to change because I don't care which way you slice it. And the numbers obviously were bad. He had an unimpactful, uneventful series, and it was the Juan Soto series. We could get to the layers of the Yankees taking 2 out of 3 to the Mets and all those different things, but it was about Juan Soto. To me, it is clear. Nobody can dispute that Juan Soto is not himself and just does not look comfortable with the New York Mets.
I agree, but now we need to figure out why. And it's one thing, and we saw this early in the year. We talked about it as well. It's early, getting used to the Mets. It's early. And he wasn't playing horrendously, just didn't quite look like Juan Soto, as we said. And we're like, well, where's the shuffle?
Yeah.
Where's that electric intensity or that electric presence that you guys were so pumped up about and I enjoyed so much for a year? But now the next question, and this is when it's kind of like where everything's overlapping now, where was the hustle last night? Of all the things, the 1 for 10, the 0 extra base hits, the strikeouts, the fairly empty 3-game series against the Yankees, which was largely more symbolic. They're all... Right. I didn't get too into it. Like, I said, I hope Judge does great. I hope the Yankees with a couple. I hope Soto takes a few collars. But I'm not like a crazy Subway Series. I didn't overstate the value of this. But when he didn't hustle down the line, is that embarrassment? Because sometimes when you are embarrassed, you almost disengage. That's definitely one human protective mode. Or is that just him being... not confused, but just...
frustrated?
Yeah, well, definitely frustrated. But yeah, a little bit of everything. Like, to me, that was the one thing. We could sit here and talk about a lot of things from a baseball perspective, not busting hump down the line in a tie. It was tied at that point, right? In a tie game.
Yeah, because I was expecting they hit a home run off of Williams to give him the lead.
Devin Williams is unacceptable.
Yeah, and that moment, I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't bother me. Now, I don't think it was the worst case of lack of hustle. He realized what he did right away and started to pick it up again and run down the line, but still inexcusable. My bigger issue is just the body language. It's plain as day. Remember when I was criticizing Soto a couple weeks ago, whatever, for his numbers and the performance, and there's some pushback, blah, blah. It's not about his talent. Like, this is not Jason Bay level of concern. Nobody's curious or concerned or worried about Juan Soto being washed up. It's that he, in visible sight, is not comfortable. Andy Martino, I don't know if you read this one, and I got to give it to you during the break. He wrote for SNY.TV. I was reading it yesterday a little bit during the game. Talked about Starling Marte trying to be an influence on Soto and make him feel comfortable. Remember the Mets do this silly thing where, like, they hit a home run, then they'll pose
the
for
picture.
The camera.
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, he kind of checked out of the picture early.
Correct.
We brought that up briefly, sure.
And
right in the corner of the dugout.
And Marte went and grabbed him and said, hey, here, this is what we do. Now, Soto is, maybe that doesn't make him comfortable. Some people, like me personally, I think it's fun, sure, but I like the professionalism. Mm-hmm. I know today's day and age, everybody does the fun stuff. But if Juan Soto doesn't feel comfortable posing for the pitcher because he thinks it's foolish, I understand what Marte was trying to do and trying to get him along and make him know what the Mets do. I don't want Juan Soto to fall in line to what the Mets do. I want Juan Soto to be Juan Soto. And maybe now look, BT, maybe in a couple of months, it'll work and Juan Soto feel more comfortable. Or maybe they just need to let the animal that they signed for $765 million be himself. Let him, if he wants to sit in the corner of the dugout on his own and not celebrate after him, I don't care. I, though, need to see the impact from Juan Soto. I need to see Soto feeling himself. People are like, oh, who cares about the shuffle? That is imperative because that's who he's been, and that's not there. And he clearly, for whatever reason, does not feel comfortable with the New York Mets, and that is a problem, especially when you start to think about the other guys. You know, Lindor had a rough series. Alonso's starting to come back down to earth. The Mets it got overlooked because they were playing well to start. They are going to need Juan Soto to be Juan Soto, and for whatever reason, he isn't.
Okay, so the easiest thing for me or anybody to say is, well, maybe he's not happy with the Mets. I don't know that. I think that's too easy. It's almost lazy still, so I'm not going to reach for that. But the one thing I'm going to push back on about, like, letting him be himself, that would make a lot more sense to me, or it would fit his personality more if he was very much a a figure in solitude a year ago with the Yankees. He was in the middle of all those celebrations. It's not like he went from, if he was a lonely figure a year ago, you know what I mean? And like he just went about his job and he hit 40 home runs and had 109 RBIs, but he was very disconnected from the team celebrations. You know what I mean? I'd say, okay, Juan just wants to play baseball. But last year, remember how the Yankees, and they do it still, but how they end every win. All the three outfielders run, they jump on each other. He was in the middle of that. Every celebration, he had to, whatever he was doing with Judge, this thing, like it. He seems to like that. He's not averse to that. And now this year, I'm not saying it's because he's a Met, but he doesn't look happy.
Okay, well, let's dissect it one step further, because I'm not saying he doesn't want to be, celebrate or have fun, but do you think, right or wrong, and I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just trying to call it how it is. Do you think that there is a certain level of professionalism that the Yankees have that the Mets with the OMG stuff or maybe with the over-the-top celebrations at times, again, I'm not knocking it.
I got you.
It was a great strength a year ago, so I wouldn't get away from that. But is it fair to say that the Yankees hold themselves a little more in a professional manner than the Mets?
Honestly, I don't think so.
Okay. I mean,
I know what you're saying. We're trying to get some answers here. I think, sure, historically, yeah. I mean, the Yankees, the Brooks brothers, navy blue, pinstripe, very faint pinstripe suit, white crisp shirt, oxblood
but even
loafers.
the celebration seems...
Yeah, but think about this. The Met celebrations aren't quite what they were a year ago. There's no OMG sign. Right. There's no grimace. There's no... it's just, you hit a home run, you get to the corner of the dugout, you take a picture. Just like Seattle, when they go yard, they've got that big pitchfork or whatever they have out there. The chains, the Toronto Blue Jays have the jacket.
Well, maybe he wouldn't like that either. I don't...
Maybe not, but I don't know. I've always looked at Juan Soto as a guy with, and the kids will relate to this, a lot of swag, a lot of drip. Yeah. A lot of bounce, a lot of presence, loving the big-time stage. It just seems like his personality's changed a bit. Like, if he was this way a year ago, then I'd say, and I still think he's going to hit. I'm not sounding, he's not going to have a great first year, I don't think, but he's still going to have, he's better than this. We know that. I just feel like he's changed. Now, remember, when he was with the Padres and the Nationals, you guys would see him when he rolled in to play the Mets. I would watch SMR. I'd watch some games, obviously, Padres, Interleague, whatever. We didn't see him day to day. But I saw him, and we saw him day to day a year ago. And last year, day to day, he seemed happier.
Right.
He did.
I don't know. I don't know if I would use the term happy. You could. I would just say that
comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, whatever.
Exactly. Well,
it's just different.
Because happy makes it sound like, well, he's happy. And look, maybe he was. I would not use that, but I know the Juan Soto that we have watched with the Mets so far is not the Juan Soto that I've seen his entire career.
I agree.
Whether it be with the Nationals, Yankees, Padres, whatever, World Series, biggest stages he thrives. And this weekend series, to me, confirmed that it might be a while if we see that from Juan Soto, meaning it could be a few months, it could be next year. I am no longer going to expect that Juan Soto is going to show up in a big series anymore because he hasn't. We're approaching Memorial Day. It's the Phillies. Oh, all right, big series, good pitching. This is where he thrives. The Yankees at Yankee Stadium, the return, he wanted to stick it to the Yankees and really had one good at-bat. That was the one where he hit hard on Saturday, back up the middle where Volpe had him played perfectly. I thought that was a moment where he's going to do damage right there. He did hit the ball hard, but he obviously hit it right at Volpe. But overall, that was a terribly disappointing performance from Juan Soto. He's been awful at runners in scoring position. Whatever the reasons are, it is clear Juan Soto is not himself. BT and Sal on the Fan. We'll get to the Knicks when we come back in a little bit. Let's get to your calls here on the Subway Series in Soto. Our friends at Town Fair Tire remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Rob is in Tom's River. What's up, Rob?
What's going on, gentlemen? I called a couple of weeks ago. I talked about how I was annoyed, but I wasn't upset yet with Juan Soto. Let me preface this by saying it has nothing to do with the fact that they played the Yankees this weekend. They could have played the Rockies. They could have played the Phillies. They could have played anybody. He doesn't look like he wants to be here. That ground ball in the eighth inning to second base where, any amount of hustle has that, maybe him beating that out.
Yep.
It just looked like he had no care in the world to beat that out, to hustle for his team. And I don't know where that's coming from. And at this point, I'm pissed. I really am.
I can't blame you, Rob, and thank you for the call.
Now, there's a difference between being, obviously pissed off and angry, which I get, and concerned. And that's an interesting line to straddle.
And I'm not concerned, and I don't think Rob or any other Met fans are concerned, but I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't bothered. I'm more, like, at this point, I'm beyond the pissed off and angry. Remember, I felt that way a couple weeks ago. I am actually stunned that Juan Soto played the way that he did in these 3 games. Like,
well,
BT, he had no impact.
No, he had zero, man.
He's had a couple stolen. He had 1 hit.
I know.
He had a single. What? This guy's an animal. The reason why you go get a guy like that is not because he walks or gets on base. They can tell you that that's what the contract is, sure, but it's because there is no moment that's too big for Juan Soto. He thrives in those spots. What bigger moment in the regular season than Subway Series, his return to Yankee Stadium with everybody getting on him?
I got to tell you, I really thought the way he started the weekend, I thought he was going to have a big series. I didn't necessarily think he was going to play well going into the series, but the way he interacted with the fans, I thought it was very classy. I thought it was a very good, effective way to almost disarm them. Like if somebody's out there with the vitriol and you take your cat off and you salute them and you tap your heart, and it wasn't like a mock. You can, as a Yankee fan and a guy that I watched a year ago, I'm like, all right, you know what? He's showing respect. Like it was sincere respect. It was like, I know what's coming.
Yeah.
I left you for a lot of money for the team across town. This is what we all know what we're going to do here, but I enjoyed my 1 year here. And I thought that would loosen him up a little. If he was tight his first almost 2 months or so with the New York Mets, I thought that was going to loosen him up, and it didn't. And the only thing about Soto, and not to get into the Tucker stuff at all, but that's not why I myself differentiate between great hitter and great player. Because when Juan Soto's not hitting, he's not impacting the game.
All right, now that is a different conversation.
It is, and I'm not even trying to go back there, but you saw it this weekend.
I just want Juan Soto. That's all that I want. I want the Juan Soto that the Yankees had a year ago, that the Mets thought that the Nationals had when they won a World Series, the one that the Mets thought that they were getting. So my question is, why is he not feeling himself? And by the way, this is not speculation. This is now reported fact where he said, the shuffle will come at some point, or you just got to get comfortable. Andy Martino with the article with Marte talking about how Marte's trying to make him one of the guys. And I'm not saying that you got to sit there and be in the dugout in isolation. I'm just saying that I want him to be comfortable. And if that means that he doesn't want to pose for the camera in what he may feel is a silly celebration, or he doesn't feel like doing it for whatever reason, I don't care.
But don't you think that has an adverse effect on the chemistry of the team? What was the Mets' greatest strength a year ago? Probably chemistry.
Right, okay. But
and then starting like that, you can do some baseball things, sure, but their chemistry was amazing.
Maybe, but let him figure it out on his own. Because if I want him to be himself, the chemistry around him will be fine.
Yeah.
I still think it is. But he's trying to maybe get acclimated. They're either trying to get him to fit in or he wants to fit in. And for whatever reason, he hasn't. I just want him to be him. The Juan Soto that the Mets paid, the one that I fell in love with, I don't need him to be different or be looser or whatever. No. I want that animal. What's it going to take to get Juan Soto to feel himself or be comfortable? I mean, it could take a full season.
It could take a walk-off, next game. It could be a week where he's NL Player of the Week. When it can be a night where he hits 3 home runs. It could be a night where he does something special, or he can have a Carlos Beltran type of first season with the Mets. That's on the table now, guys. When you have, again, there's a lot of ball to go, and the Mets are good. I know that the lead has shrunk. Mets have some things they got to work on, the corner defense, and we'll get to all this stuff, obviously. I mean, Pete Alonso throwing the baseball is disgusting. I can't watch it anymore. It's absolutely disgraceful the way he throws a baseball. How do you throw a ball like that when you're 30 years old? But the point is, I don't understand it. Like, I do think that for Juan Soto to bust out, he's got to tap into something that we really haven't seen since day one when he put on that Mets uniform. Day one.
Tom is in Cranford, New Jersey. What's up, Tom?
How you doing, guys?
Hey, what's up, Tommy?
My issue is here's another superstar player that gets the big contract, and the year he gets the big contract, he just falls apart. I mean, has everybody thought about that?
I don't think that's fair, Tommy. I'm not going to say that you're wrong because I don't know what he's doing. Like, is there 15% less cage work? Is he 10% less in the weight room? I don't know, but I would not be unfair to Soto in that. I think he's a ball player who only loves baseball. But to say that or to think that maybe he signed it and is now checked out a bit, I think that that's unfair to him. I'm not saying that. No way. Not yet. That's for sure. Not yet.
Okay. That's fair.
That's early to
fair.
say that, man.
We'll see what the rest of the season brings.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
what it comes down to.
Yeah, I would not say, and thank you for the call,
Thanks,
Tom.
buddy.
I appreciate checking in. You're right, BT. It's not like Juan Soto has never looked like the Juan Soto of old in a Mets uniform. He did that first game. That was Juan Soto, even that first weekend against the Astros. He was Juan Soto. All right, Hader got him, but it was still a tremendous at-bat. That was Juan Soto. You saw the Soto shuffles earlier on in the year. What has happened to Juan Soto? It's not concern. It's not buyer's remorse. Something is clearly off, and I just want to know what it is and why he doesn't feel comfortable. Whether he's second-guessing himself, whatever. I mean, he made the decision. He's going to have to live with it. But maybe that could take a while to feel comfortable in your decision and not overthink things or whatever it may be. But this is not him. Even if the numbers were still what they are, but I was seeing that shuffle, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
You could look at the hard hit rate and say, well, he's hitting balls. That's why we're not concerned about Soto, his ability.
Nope.
I'm concerned about his mentality. I want that shuffle. I want that animal that I love in Juan Soto. Where is it, and why isn't it here right now?
I don't know. Listen, his teammates just have to, insulate him and make him feel welcome. I'm sure they've done a good job of that, but eventually the onus is on Juan Soto. He's the one digging in the box, and he's the one who's got to start making this money and earning this money, I should say. And I do think he will. Though, I'll tell you, though, as I think about this, and we're going through a lot of different possibilities and thought processes, and we're just throwing darts here, but it's obvious he doesn't look like the player that he needs to look like yet. We may have really undersold his inability to get away from his decision to leave the Yankees because the Yankees are here. Like, if he left and went to the Dodgers, hey, that's 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
He cannot escape this. And when we talked about the monumental impact when you take the Yankees, the platinum franchise, and willingly go to the Mets, we're like, wow, that is a rearrangement of the planets in terms of the way we perceive these teams, both of them. But the day-to-day Yankee fans, this, that, you can't run away from it. And maybe it's just beating him down, man.
I think it's an excellent point. I'm not sure. I was talking to some former players about this before this series. This is a while ago. And talking about, like, man, does he – because I was saying, like, if I had the chance to talk to Soto, one day we will, but if I had the chance, I'd be like, man, do you understand the magnitude of what you did? And the former player was like, doesn't care. Like, that's a fan thing or a media thing or a city thing, doesn't care. I don't know if I believe that 100%. I believe it, but I think you bring up an excellent point. Like, he can't help but hear it. He's been asked about it multiple times throughout the course of the season so far. Do you miss the Yankees? Are you happy with the Mets? Blah, blah, blah. Now he dealt with it firsthand going back there in the Bronx and feeling those 50,000. And while I thought he handled it perfectly as far as his mentality, which is why I love him, like, that shows that he still gets it. He wasn't intimidated at all. He didn't cower. He wasn't afraid of the bleacher creatures. He wasn't afraid of all the boos. He welcomed it. He just doesn't look like himself, and himself is, when there's a big spot, he's going to do damage. He has not done that at all. Yankee series or prior, he's been awful with runners in scoring position, and we need to figure out why that is.
Yep. Oh, he's got to figure out why that is.
Right.
We can throw things on the air all day, but the fear is this, too, is that there's no guarantee it doesn't get worse. As this thing builds and festers, depending upon how he internalizes this, it could get worse. It could.
Come on, man.
Rough weekend.
I don't know if it could get worse than what we saw over the weekend. BT and Sal on the fan. We'll get to some Knicks when we come back. 888-808-1019, the number to call.